Welcome to Like Mother, Not Like Daughter podcast, where we share conversation of womanhood that bridge the gap from one generation to the next.
That's right. Our hope is that this podcast sparks honest conversations within families to strengthen the family bond.
Yes.
I am one of your hosts, Jen Rodriguez.
And I am Carolyn Little.
It's a new year, which means it's a new season of Like Mother, Not Like Daughter. Happy New Year to you guys.
Yes.
We are really excited about 2024. This past year brought a lot of different challenges, but we are back at it for season 2. So thank you guys so much for your patience and just rocking with us and watching those old episodes. I saw y'all rocking those old episodes and letting us know that you are ready for season 2. So we are back at it in 2024.
2024. Before we get started, you know we have to do our clink, clink,
Clink, clink. Yes, we do, baby. Now, what are you sipping on?
Well, she would call this so basic, but I'm telling you, it is so refreshing. It's just some nice filtered water with strawberries.
Okay.
Nothing too extravaganza.
Mine is a little bit more extravaganza because I'm team too much, but
Yes.
this is a new collagen drink I am trying, you guys. So I don't know if I can share where it's from yet, but it's supposed to be good for hair growth. It's supposed to be good for your skin, your nails, all that good stuff. But I added some strawberries and some blueberries to mine. So I know it looks kind of murky, but you know the best drinks that do the good for you, they usually look a little murky. They don't look like the most fresh things in the world sometimes. So we're going to clink, clink, ding, to 2024 and to a brand new season of Like Mother, Not Like Daughter podcast. So let's go.
I like the way you do it, baby. Let's be honest about it. There's a way around it. I like the way you do it, baby. Let's be honest about it. There's a way around it. I like the way you.
I can taste the strawberries. Mine is so refreshing.
I'm sure it is. Okay, so first of all, let's talk a little bit about like why we're doing this podcast together again.
Yeah.
So I know that if you guys are joining us for the first time, you might not have heard of Like Mother, Not Like Daughter, but we started this pretty much with a mission of like learning while unlearning.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a lot of unlearning. There's so many different lessons that my mom has taught me that I've embodied and brought on. But at the time, I was thinking like, okay, Mom, what's going on? What are these lessons for? Why do I need to embody them right now? But as I'm growing up, I'm definitely learning what I'm going to hold on to from my mom and continue to put into practice. But then also being cognitive and just having my own relationship with God and learning about the things that I want to embody in my life and maybe even unlearn some things that maybe I was taught that maybe isn't working anymore. So that is the reason why we're doing this podcast, because at the same time, my mom is like learning some things from me as I continue learning from her. It's this big cycle. So
it is a huge cycle. And I think that just learning from another generation, especially when we're in this generation, is such a blessing. And the lessons that I've given her, the lessons that I'm learning from her, sometimes they kind of collide. But then we try to get an understanding as to why we're doing what we're doing and why we're saying what we're saying. So my generation, of course, was brought up totally different than what's happening now. And so I think the best thing that I'm learning and that we're learning together is just to stay open.
Yeah.
Nobody's right or nobody's wrong, but just to stay open to learn more about each other. And, you know, even our relationships with God, we're learning more, you know, every time. So this season brought a whole different journey for us. We're still on it, but we're listening and we're learning.
Yes, we are.
Listening and learning.
We're listening and we're learning.
learning.
So it really is just about connection and bridging that gap between the two generations. So we're excited to bring this brand new season with our very first episode called Stop All That Crying.
Lessons of Managing Your Emotions.
Yes. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even feel like doing this episode today. But it's much needed, and I know that my mom has some lessons to teach me about managing my emotions, and I'm just here for it, so let's get into it. Let's just get into it. Okay, so we're going to talk about where we can identify our emotions as a gift, but also not being led by our emotions. So when I was growing up, especially in a Christian household, I had emotions that were like allowed, but we didn't necessarily fully express them.
Yeah.
We had to kind of get over it. A lot of it was that's just the way life is, or maybe pray your way through it, etc. So that did shape a lot of how I grew up and how I became to be so strong and learn how to like keep it pushing and things like that. But I am learning that there are times where with emotions you have to allow them to be released.
Yes.
And you have to express them as an adult, but you have to do it like in a mature way.
Right. Yeah.
So I really struggled with that. I definitely realized, like in the workplace, for example, because I held a lot in, I didn't know how to express how I was feeling.
Yeah.
And a lot of that caused like just attitudes or just coming off the wrong way or just saying things that I honestly wish I could take back, like having a little bit of word vomit. How many of y'all have word vomit sometimes? Sometimes you have word vomit and you let things spill out that you really don't mean, and then when you try to take them back, it's like there's nothing you can do. Those daggers are out there, and we always say, we know what the word says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. So, you know, I think that I don't know, what about you, Mom? What did you learn, or how are you ways to view emotions? Because we were allowed to express them, but sometimes, and maybe it was self-inflicted, where we felt like we would get judged for some of the emotions that we had. It was just balancing the spirituality with the humanity. And that's something I'm still learning, is how to trust God in the midst of having emotions and learning that that's actually okay. So what about you?
You know, even though, just let me say this when we go back to word vomiting, is that you think of it this way. I think of it this way, like toothpaste. If I let it out, I can't put it back in that tube. Yeah. I don't care how much we try to scoop that toothpaste back in there, it ain't gonna go. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing when you word vomiting. You just have to think like, is this productive? Is it worth saying? Should I say it? And sometimes when you're emotional, you can't even think of those questions in your mind. They don't even come to your mind to think about, to stop and say, is this?
It's screaming. Everything is screaming. Say it now. Let it out.
Right now.
Let them have it.
Right
now. If it's not right now, then you don't lose it.
It's
you don't
either
lose
now
the
or
power.
never.
It's either now or never.
Yes.
And it's like, that is the biggest lie. Sometimes things are warranted a response, but sometimes it's like no matter what, there has to be a filter that it goes through. And no matter who is directed at or what you feel like they did, like you just have to be able to be strong enough to hold your peace.
Yes.
And let the Lord fight your battles and really just say, okay, how do I need to respond in this moment?
Yeah. And when I was growing up, you know, I thank God that we were in a home where we could express ourselves, but it was the same way, which is probably why we taught the same way, as like, let's just get on with it. You can soak about it, you know, but we always tried to have a no judgment free home. And I still do have a no judgment free. You just can't judge people, but there is a righteous judge that you can't do according to what the Bible says.
There's a what?
Righteous judge that you can do. And so the other thing is that I think when you are going, you know, really emotional, you do have to step back and say, okay, God, help me through this. You know, and sometimes that's all you can say is, God, help me, you know, through this emotional roller coaster that I am going through. And then sometimes you don't even ask God to help you, just kind of go forward and just do what you think is right, which is not always the right way. So when we were growing up, you know, I just learned how to express what I was feeling in my home. Thank God I had my mom that would listen. But then I thank God that when I began to really know God for myself, there were certain emotions I didn't want to express to my mom, but I knew it was okay for me to express to God. So I think that's one thing that God really enjoy in having us as his children, is that we really can express what we're feeling to God. And I don't think we do enough of that. I think we try to hide it.
That's really true.
We try to hide it. We try to act like, you know, okay, God, here I am again with all of my 15 Christianese for the day. Lord, bless me, help me. Okay, I can't talk to God that way. You know what I'm saying? But if I can't talk to God the way, I'm telling you, in this season,
in the world,
can you talk to?
Can you talk? Oh my gosh, there are times when I have to say, you know what? Maybe God could be my filter, because he knows me more than anyone else. So why not just let it out to him and say, okay, Lord, this is what I really want to say. Like, this is how I want to get it out. okay, this is how I want to get it out right now.
Right now.
And just at least I released it, and then he can, it's almost like this. I feel like if we trust God with our emotions, and we trust him with that honesty and that vulnerability, and we let it out rather than hold on to it and give it to the one who knows, he can then empty that space to fill it back with wisdom. Yeah. And kind of say, okay, give that to me. Yeah.
I'll take that.
I'll take that. Here's what we can. I promise you, every time that I have laid on my face or just cried, or any time that I just let it all out and say, God, this is how I honestly feel. Yes. I don't know if I don't even know if this is the right way to feel, or if I should feel this way, if I should be more mad, or if I should blah, blah, blah. But this is how I honestly feel. This is what is on my heart. This is what's on my mind. And every time I've emptied myself of that and placed it on his shoulders, he's given me hope. He's given me love. Peace. He's given me peace and a surety that he sees the pain and that he knows. You know what I mean? It's almost like with your own children or people that you're caring for. Do they bump their knee a certain way and you're like, oh, I remember that pain. Yes. I know. Come on. Just bring it in. Bring it in. I ain't even got much to say. Let me just love on you. Let me hug on you. Let me let you know that I see you. But you also know that even though they feel that way now, there's a moment you're going to be okay. Yeah. You're going to be all right. I'm here. And once you're done, we can go play. We can go back and do all the other fun things that we talked about. But right now, release those emotions and let it out, because it is okay that you're hurt or that you're happy or whatever it is.
I think that's really good. Just, expressing your emotions the way to God, and letting things out, because he do want to hear us as real people. He want to hear our real selves. And I think when we hear our real selves, and it's like, okay, God hears us, and then we know with all of that, peace and strength is going to come. Yeah.
What a way to build a relationship with him, too.
Oh, my gosh.
And just
amazing.
Draw closer to him. It's one thing to know that he knows you, but it's another to
know that you trust him.
Be who you are. You know what I'm saying? Trust him with who you are, and know that he's not going to leave you. Other people might see that and say, ooh, that's kind of toxic. I don't know if I want to be around that, or that's kind of whatever. But God's like, nope, I trust you with that. And he will place people around you who you can trust with that too. Yeah. So,
and with God, there is a real free, no judgment zone.
There is.
And there is a real free, no judgment zone.
Thank God for
that. So now, Jennifer, when did you learn, or how did you learn to manage your emotions?
Oh, I would say there are aspects where I'm still learning how to do that. But I will say that what helped me was there was a situation at work that I had with my boss. And I used to get really emotional when I would receive tough feedback, especially if I didn't agree, or if it had to do with my character or integrity or something like that. I would get really emotional. And it wasn't because I believed what they said. It was because I was so mad. Yes. I was just like, well, part of me was like, well, first of all, am I not doing my job? Am I not being am I not showing up? I don't have no problems with nobody. Yeah. My results are there. Why are we digging into personal development? Let me just do what I do and let me go home, and to my child, to my, at the time, my husband, all that stuff. Let me go home to my family. Why are we talking about all these things? But it really taught me how to embrace constructive criticism, even personally, even while at work. Even though it didn't have anything to do with my job performance, there were just things that my boss identified that would help me to be a better leader and to help me be a better wife and mother. So I had to learn how to embrace them and how not to make a mountain out of molehills. One of my friends, she used to be my roommate, but she always said, don't make a mountain out of molehills. If it's something small, don't make it so big to the point that it takes over your day or it takes over your life just because those little things happen. Because then you have to conserve your energy for when those big mountains do come in life, and they do. So I think that just learning how to handle constructive criticism helped me to learn how to manage my emotions, because it taught me not to take everything personally. Right. And to know that just because someone else is maybe having an issue with something doesn't mean they don't like me, doesn't mean they don't love me, doesn't mean that they're throwing me away. It just means that there's an area where I can improve. And a win is a win. You know what I'm saying? No matter who it's coming from, if it makes me better as a leader or as a woman, then a win is a win. And I will take that win, I will embrace it, and I will work on those things, even if it doesn't apply to everybody else. So I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Yeah, it does, because as long as you're willing to learn
Yeah.
You know, to learn how to manage everything, and as long as you're willing to, you know, express yourself,
Yeah.
and then you know you learn that lesson, and then you move on, which is of course sometimes easier said than done as well. So let's dive into some hot topics and see where we can bridge
wait a
the
minute,
gap.
before we go, I
Oh.
want an example from you. Is there a time where you had to learn how to really manage your emotions? Like maybe I was almost too like, I don't know, like, I don't know, is there an example? Either way, well, on the spectrum of like maybe it was like over sad or over angry about something, you learn to manage that. Or sometimes you're almost too happy or you jump the gun with things, you move too fast beyond God because of your emotions, and then you got to backtrack. Like, has there ever been an example of?
Well, you know, I
Anything else?
tell you, going through this season of grief, I have learned how to manage emotions.
Yeah.
And I've learned how to now still do what I got to do to get through the day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it's cry, scream, jump, yell, or whatever that may be, talk to God. I still do that to get through the day. But then there's sometimes when I have to say, okay, God, I want to cry, but this is not the time for me to cry. So I'm going to have to hold that cry in
Yeah.
until a later time of the day. And so that has really helped me to, you know, to really manage my emotions. Know that I put things into perspective. I think that's the biggest thing of handling your emotions, is learning how to put things into perspective.
Yeah.
And so this season, I have really, really learned how to hone in my emotions and really know when to let them go.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a time where I can't let them go, even
Yeah.
though I want them to go. You know, sometimes like walking in the store, I can hear a song or look at a bag of Cheetos, and I just want to burst out in the aisle.
Yeah.
Now, have I done it? Yeah, in these last 2 years, yes, I have.
Mm-hmm.
But now, as I'm going through the season, which brings another year, I can look at a bag of Cheetos and just smile.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm getting ready to burst out. That first year, I was crying over
Yeah.
Cheetos, pork chops,
Everything.
you know, ginger ale, just even going in the store.
Lord.
But now, as this season is, you know, of grief is continuing to go, I'm not as emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm learning how to just say, okay, not right now. Now get to the car and you can cry about those Cheetos. But it's not a good thing to cry in the aisles. We got to finish grocery shopping, but get to the car and you can let it go.
So I remember when I had a conversation with my grief coach, and she was saying, like, if you're in safe space, then that's a good time to release those emotions. And I really had to embrace that and had to think about that, because just even the season that I'm going through, I had to think, like, what is truly safe space?
Yeah.
Do I have true safe space where I don't have to be alone? Like, who in my life can I really call that I can trust?
Right,
with
your emotions.
Some of the emotions that I'm having, who won't judge me, who won't say, well, it's been X amount of whatever, how long, you know, like, who really says, you know what, I get it. And it's not that, you know, they don't check me sometimes, because sometimes the emotions are a little out there, and they're like, okay, now bring them in, girl, just bring it in a little bit, you know, it's okay, but bring it on in. But ultimately, I think that I had to learn that when I create the safe space, and that, you know, that's a good time to release those emotions. So it's not that it's like, girl, stop crying. It's not like that. But it's just saying, you know, put things in perspective. Take those emotions to God. Ask for true wisdom, because as we know, emotions may feel like truth, but they are not always the truth. Yeah. Especially when those emotions are negative, you know.
And know when you're in a safe space.
And know when you're in a safe space.
That's really good, in a safe space. So now, let's dive into some hot topics. And see where we can bridge the gap, because it's important. Stop.
We ain't got time for all that today.
Okay.
We'll start over.
So let's dive into some hot topics and see where we can bridge the gap. Because it's important that we not only walk away understanding more about each other, but that we have a confident outlook on building our own ideas.
All right. Awesome. So let's start from the beginning. What is an emotion?
That's a lot. Let's just stick to what the Bible says.
The Bible, Webster Dictionary.
Yes, let's stick to what that says.
Yes.
So it's a conscious mental reaction, such as anger or fear, subjectively experienced as strong feeling, usually directed toward a specific object, and typically accomplished by psychological and behavioral changes in the body.
A specific object or specific?
Specific
Okay.
object. Specific object. Specific.
Did you catch it though? You said
Specific.
specific
Hey.
object.
Specific object. And it's a lot.
It is.
Webster said a whole lot.
It sure did.
And typically accomplished,
accompanied.
accompanied by, let me start over.
Yeah, okay, hold on.
What is emotion?
Okay. You want to do it? Redemption?
Conscious mental reaction,
Uh-huh.
such as anger or fear,
Wow.
subjectively
Mm-hmm.
experienced
Mm-hmm.
as strong feeling,
Mm-hmm.
usually
Mm.
directed toward a specific
Uh-huh.
object and typically accompanied by psychological
Uh-huh.
and behavioral changes
Mm.
in the body.
In the body.
In the body.
Yes.
A state of feeling,
Yes.
the effective
Mm-hmm.
aspect of
Of
consciousness.
Ooh. A state to get through that.
Yes.
A state of feeling the effective aspect of consciousness.
Ooh.
What really stuck out to me is that it's a conscious mental reaction.
Yeah.
It's a conscious mental reaction experienced as a strong feeling, usually directed toward a specific object, and it's accompanied by psychological and behavioral changes
In the body.
So emotions without the psychological and behavioral changes, it's okay that you have the two, right? So I think
Right.
that there are people, and I think as long as it's safe,
Yes.
then it's okay. So for example, if you have an emotional outburst, it usually shows in some way, whether it's psychological
Yeah.
or whether it has behavioral changes in the body.
Right.
You might clench your fists. You might grit your teeth.
pearls.
You might clutch your pearls. You might jump for joy, whatever it is.
You might cry.
And you might cry.
Yeah.
Those behavioral changes in the body and those psychological changes are totally normal,
Yes.
but it really is a conscious mental reaction. Meaning that if it's a conscious mental reaction, does that mean that it can be controlled?
Oh, yes. If it's conscious.
Yes, it can.
If it's conscious, I think it can be controlled.
Yes, there might be subconscious things that
Yeah.
cause an emotion to arise, but you are awake, you are in control, you're not asleep, and unless there's other things going on. But ultimately, because you're in a conscious state of being, I would think that that means
Yeah.
that your emotions, although they can't necessarily be reversed, they can be changed. And that can come through perspective, that can come through release, that can come through therapy, that can come through a lot of different avenues. But I think it's just a matter of knowing that there is something I can do with this feeling. All is not lost. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean
Yeah.
that everything you think about the situation is true, but it's just your feeling, and it's just your reaction to what's
Right.
happening around you.
Yeah. And some people think like you can cry uncontrollably. Like you could just cry and like, will I ever stop crying? Well,
Yeah.
you will. You know, once you tell yourself, hey, you know, let's bring it in. You know, let's catch our breath.
Right. Use
And-
your breath.
Yeah, and just continue to, you know, to move on. So yeah, we don't want to do anything that's I don't want to say out
Without
of control.
consequence or
Yeah.
without that
Yeah.
consciousness. Like you are conscious, you are aware of what's
Right.
happening. And that's why there is a responsibility that you have. And sometimes there might be a consequence of reacting so emotionally. And that is why I say that there are times where you can hold back just for a second
Yeah. Or
or
let it go
let it go
for a second.
for a
Bring
moment
it back in.
and bring it back in.
Yeah. Now here's a question.
Ooh.
This is one that, you know, probably all of America is
Right.
still trying to figure it out.
Uh-huh.
But who is more emotional, males or females?
Mm.
Now, the key takeaways across the world, it's a common assumption
Uh-huh.
that women are more emotional than men.
Mm.
But a new study,
Mm-hmm.
now, don't fact check it or anything like that. We're just going to say a
Based
new
on our own
study
research.
found that women, whether regularly
Mm-hmm.
menstruating or taking hormonal birth control have similar emotion patterns to men.
Huh.
Now that's just
Okay,
a new study.
So wait a minute. So it's a common assumption that women are more emotional than men. However, a new study has found that women, whether regularly menstruating or taking hormonal birth control, have similar emotional patterns to men. Now, I will be honest. From personal experience, men may not always release all of their emotions the same way that women do. However,
they are emotional.
I would argue that men are just as emotional, if not more,
than women. Yeah. They just hide it in a different way, or they just try to,
they act out in a whole
yeah.
different way. And it's not to say that it's bad that they're more emotional. I just think that we just need to acknowledge that men
are emotional.
Are emotional beings.
Yes.
They may not, whether they're more emotional than women or not, it doesn't matter. But they do have emotions. They do have feelings. They want to be loved. They want to be respected. A lot of times, and here's an indicator. Most men would much rather be respected than they would be loved. If someone loves them and cares for, does all these things, but they don't respect them, and they don't feel respected,
give them the
Don't
honor.
feel respected, even if they are being respected, but maybe it's just not the way that you want. They'll happily move on to somebody else if they don't feel
respected. That's the big thing for men is having that respect. And I think as females, when you're in a relationship, you have to learn how to balance that respect out.
You do.
With your emotions.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because we can always think that, we want a man to be a man, be a man's man, as we would say back in my day.
I know I do.
Be a man's man. But then there's a point where when you're in I'm going to say when you're in a relationship, but I'm just going to say like when you're married, because I know nowadays people in relationships, they're still looking for that man be the man's man, and then do this for me, because I'm a woman. I deserve that. Don't inbox me. Don't email me. Don't text me. I'm just saying. Okay. So in my generation, you was a man's man. There was things that you just expected a man to do.
Right.
You didn't have to, whether I thought you should or you shouldn't.
Right.
It was just the way it was back in the DAY.
Yeah.
Now I can go as far as taking out the garbage, or helping
how to change a tire,
helping with the groceries, or putting gas in the car, bringing home the bacon. That's just a whole different generation. You know what I'm saying? Your dad was great with all of that. It was just it's a totally different generation than it is now.
Or even like a different time where men from that generation are learning how to now embrace their emotions. It doesn't mean that they are any less of that man's man, or that they don't do those things. But even when I think about Dad, there's very few times where I saw him cry. I feel like I saw him cry more in my adult life than I did when I was younger.
Yeah,
and a lot of times it was just because, just even in conversation with him, he was still learning who he was, and that it was okay to be who he was, and that he didn't have to shoulder the burden without expressing how hard it might be, or of that nature. And I know a lot of men now, like young men that I've even talked to, who are like friends, who are like, man, I just don't feel like there's a safe space for me to be emotional at all.
And that's not good.
I can't, and they're married.
That's not good.
Or in relationships, and they're like, I don't feel like I'm in a space where I can really say how I feel or what I think, because I know I'm going to get judged for it. And I think that's where it doesn't matter who's more emotional than who. I think you have to, once you understand the emotions of your partner, and you create, as a woman, you create that safe space for them to be emotional and not get emotional back, and you're able to keep the right perspective and still show that respect. I think that is where you just learn the balance, where the men are able to say, okay, I'm a man's man, I'm a doer, but my woman needs to, she needs me to hear her out. She has things that's going on, and she has all these emotions that she's going to need to release. So I need to just let her do it, let her have her moment. And I can come in with a little bit when she's done, like let her have her moment. But when she's done, you know what I'm saying? When she's done, they can step in and bring a little bit more of that practical, because I do think that men sometimes think practically first and emotionally later. But I think that just goes to show how strong feelings really are. So I think that are men or women more emotional almost doesn't matter. I think that once you at least understand the nature of a woman and you understand the nature of a man, we should be using that to understand each other more and create those safe spaces rather than using that to compare or say, you should be more like me in this moment or you should be more like this. Let them be who they are, you be who you are, and you guys just like figure it out.
I think one thing that we're learning in this session is creating the safe space.
Creating safe
relationships,
space.
marriages, create that safe space. Now, do emotions have a purpose?
Absolutely.
They do. They have a purpose, and they have a few important uses. Emotions drive our actions.
That's true.
All the time.
Absolutely.
For example, a fight, a flight, or freeze response. Emotions tell others what we're dealing with, stresses, and where we need support.
Absolutely. And that's important to know. Like a lot of times emotions are caused by things that maybe you didn't even start.
Yeah.
Or have nothing to do with you. They just have to do with the situation, or they have to do with, you know, how the situation makes me feel or what it reminds me of or that types of things. So yeah, there are those responses, those auto responses to like fight or flight.
Yeah.
Just like totally escape or to freeze.
Yeah.
Like I remember I was having a conversation with someone and they were like, I don't even know if you're ready to have this conversation because every time I say something, you like stop and freeze. And for me, it was just because I was in situations where I wasn't allowed to really express my emotions to my partner fully because I got judged for even thinking the way I was thinking. It's like, well, why do you feel that way? Or why do you think that way? Or why do you? And it's like, why? I don't know why I feel that way or why I think that way. That's how I'm wired. That's how I am. That's just how it is. Like, why am I getting my brain picked apart for having a feeling?
Right.
So I had a freeze, and then once I freeze for a while, and I'm getting judged for freezing, then I just flight. I just go away because I'm like, well, I made myself understood. I don't even know what's going on. It's hard for me to even have this conversation without slightly smiling because if I don't smile, I might cry. And, you know, just not really knowing how to have really tough conversations, like within relationships or within certain types of dynamics, because I wasn't really allowed to productively before. It always turned into an argument, always turned into something else.
Right.
And there was no safe space. So I think that when you're able to, again, create that safe space for that partner, even if they try to leave, it's like, no, come on back.
Yeah.
Sit down. Let's figure this out.
Yeah, let's have a conversation.
You can trust me with this conversation. No matter how this result's going to turn out, it's not, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing but love here. There's nothing but, you know, let's be honest about it and let's support each other through wisdom. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, and emotions have wisdom.
They do. They can.
Emotions have wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Breathe in some love and let yourself unfold. Breathe in some love.
All right. So each episode will end with affirmations we can all focus on around this topic. We all know that affirmations help to set the intention for our day and for our week. So feel free to add these as a part of your daily routine.
Right. I embrace my emotions, but understand they don't control me.
I will not be led by my negative emotions. I'm going to say that one more time.
One more time.
I will not be led by my negative emotions.
I use wisdom when expressing and responding to my daily circumstances.
Anxiety, depression, and stress have no place in my life. I might say that one more time. Anxiety, depression, and stress have no place in my life. They have no place in your life.
Yes. God has provided everything I need.
I am enough.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
Yes.
Thank you for listening and thank you for watching this episode of Like Mother and Not Like Daughter podcast. We hope that this conversation will help you bridge the gap from one generation to the next in your family.
Yes, and we look forward to sharing our next episode. Don't let her take your man. Lessons on dating and relationships. You can listen to the recap of this episode and all episodes on all podcast platforms.
But in the meantime, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button right now.
Yes.
And join the Like Mother, Not Like Daughter party.
And go ahead and share it.
Please do.
Until the next time, have a great day.
Bye.
The way you do.